So I'm Philippe Rahm. I'm an architect. I'm Swiss. I study in Switzerland, but my office is in Paris, in France. I didn't know about architecture before starting to study, so it's something that I really discover, and I became really passionate about architecture maybe after the second, third years, and so at that moment I can combine some personal interest into maybe philosophy and literature and science with architecture, and so it was a good combination of things to make architecture and to study architecture. I was in a period like a postmodern period, so it was like really driven by people like Aldo Rossi, and of course from Switzerland it was a moment of change between Mario Botta, Luigi Snoddy generation and Herzog and de Meuron, Pecard Zumthor generation. So I was at that moment of change, and so I cannot say that I have some master. Maybe I was really interested into Louis Kahn, for example. He was more the master of my professor at the EPFL in Lausanne. But then I traveled in the US to see a lot of building of Louis Kahn. So I like that very much, and I learned a lot about from that. But I have to say that for me, it was also really interesting to understand from where all these ideas were coming, because I was not completely okay with postmodern architecture. It created some trouble for me because I was thinking that maybe there is less materialist point of view. It was more like a superstructuralism point of view. So it was more about language and not really about materiality and maybe time, and so I start to a little to be critics with that, and to yes, maybe to challenge this type of knowledge. The idea to be critic came when you don't understand something. You don't understand why this is good and why this is bad. Someone say this is good, this is bad, but you don't understand why, and so you try, but at the end there is something that is not correct for you, and so it's why I have always this will to really to try to find the roots of idea. For maybe some idea of my generation, of when I was student, came 10 years, 20 years before, and maybe it came from some philosophy from that time, but we didn't know about that. So it's quite important to understand the history of the idea, the history of the design, and from that you are more free to understand why someone find that good. It's this is because it came from that, and this is a moment in the history where we were finding that type of architecture was good, but in reality it's completely relative to a certain period of the history. So to know history of architecture, to know history of idea, to know philosophy, and to know also science, it's something that gives you more freedom for doing things, and also to answer to the critic and to make design according to your own point of view, but by knowing that where you are in the history, what is the knowledge around you, and this is why I'm always interested into the contemporary conversation, to place myself in that. So when I finished the school, I have the opportunity to work in an office in Lausanne, and this was a rare moment of unemployment period. So it was not easy to find a job, and during 2 years, I was an employee in an office, but I started to work with my colleague Jean-Gilles Descoster. I found with him our first office, and because he has no job from his side, so we were working together after the day of work for me, And then we won some competition, and we were selected for some projects. So, and we were really good together. We work really well together, and we have quite clear idea at that moment. The idea was, it was like, it was a little like the continuity of the moment when the materiality became quite important in Switzerland with Herzog and de Meuron. They were using like stone, concrete, wood, this idea of materiality. But for that generation, it was more about the narrative of the materiality, so the symbolism of this materiality. And for us, I don't know why exactly, but we start to integrate an ecological point of view, a chemical point of view, a physical point of view into that. And so we were more interesting from not about what a stone is talking about, but more from where it was coming, what type of mineralogy and geology it was. So by working together with Jean-Gilles Descoster, we won some competition, and then at one moment he was higher in the same office than me, and we start to work together in the office, and then the owner of the firm found that we were too independent, and so they fire us. And then because of that, we start to open our own office. So it was 2 years after we finished the school, and then we won some competition, and we can develop our office with open competition. Yes. When we start to work, we were interested into the space itself, because all were, you heard a lot of architects talking about space. We say the space, but then for us, space was not something completely abstract, like a void, like emptiness. It was in reality a materiality of particles, of gases like oxygen, nitrogen, of temperature, of humidity, of maybe electromagnetic wavelengths, so it was full of things. And so we decide to work on that, to say we can not do only, as an architect, you don't do only the design of the solid of the wall, you don't design only the color of the facade or the proportion of the space, but you are also designing the space itself, the air, the light, but not like an abstract substance, but like a real physical, chemical, biological substances. And so it's this type of interest that was connected to the question of climate change, of global warming. And so to work on the temperature and the humidity according to sustainability and global change, it was how we develop our practice. And after that, when I opened my office in Paris, I developed that. And it's true that we need to find our own way of expressing or drawing that. So it's why, progressively a type of plan, as you are describing, or section with some color with different type of temperature, or according to the air movement or the humidity. So because I wanted to design that, so it was why I have to find also a way of representation. And then at that same moment, there is some computer software, like what we call computational fluid dynamic software that was also there. And we can use that also to see the movement of the air, the convective, the convection, the conductivity, the thermal conductivity, and we can also get some representation of that. So I think it's a big challenge for an architect, you have to challenge the type of building, but also the type of representation of tools, of photography. For example, it's also why I'm doing some thermographic image on Instagram. The idea of that is to say, okay, should we really today show photographic like in the 20th century of building, and so I think it's a little boring. It was I'm using in the 20th century to make photography, but as it was amusing, funny to make a painting in the 19th century. But today I think it's maybe there is some more important things about representation of building, and so it's why thermography is maybe something that is more crucial, more important today, because in Europe we are suffering more and more about heat waves and the global warming is becoming strong. So I think to communicate about building and cities and what you are doing as a urban designer to cool the city, to make the city more colder when it's super hot. So this is why also the representation in plan with this type of thermographic drawing, and also the thermographic camera that can make the final image of what you are doing. So yes, it was important. For example, this type of computer simulation, like light simulation or wind simulation or heat simulation, so are quite important. But it's not a lot of things we know how it works. We can understand a little how it works. So in reality, what we are doing at the sketch design, we are more doing by ourselves, and then sometimes we are using by ourselves some computer simulation. But then when we are going to the detailed design, we are more working with company, like engineers that are making the real simulation to be sure that like the ventilation can be okay like that, or the temperature will be that one. So yes, I think it's technology is something absolutely interesting, and so I like to use that for making new projects. Yes, a lot of development of the architecture of the 20th century was based on central heating system that was invented during the 19th century. You have the central heating system in the underground, and then you have the radiator, and then there is also the air conditioning after 1950, and all of that was developing a kind of architecture that was absolutely not about climatic issue. It was you have, if it is too not light enough, you turn on the electrical light. If it is too cold, you turn on the radiator. So it was like that. But today, we can no more use so much energy for heating and cooling the building, because it's emitting CO2, so it's global warming. It creates a global warming, so we cannot do that. And also, this is more linked to France or Switzerland. It's become cool. It become too hot during the summer, and it was not like that 10 years ago. So what we understand from that, it's that we have to learn from the past and from the southern part for the north hemisphere, more from the south, how to make building with less consumption of energy and with more capacity for cooling. So it's why I'm really interested to look to vernacular architecture, to look again, because it was quite popular in the 70s, but to look back to the vernacular, because we can find some more natural system of cooling, like by thermal inertia, by convective ventilation, by managing the radiation, by using the underground. So we can learn a lot of about from that. So it's true that for building, I think this is some good example. And also, what is interesting in Switzerland, for example, it's to look to north of Africa building now, because the climate of Switzerland will be a little similar to North of Africa in a few years. So the building should become a little like North of Africa building before air conditioning. And that maybe because you was talking about technology before, it's true that it's better to work with less technology for building because it's you are more free. You are not less depending of techniques and obsolescence of machine or a lack of electricity or things like that, because it's often like that. I have from my own experience, I saw that when you are using too complicated system, it's become at one moment it become a problem. So it's better to use more passive way of cooling or heating or warming or lighting, and from that the vernacular architecture is a good source of knowledge. I work a lot in Taiwan. I made a big project there, so I know quite well the tropical climate, hot and humid, and so the approach, I think the climatic approach is a global approach because we are all human and we have this 37 degrees Celsius temperature, so we are all suffering from heat in the same way, in Taiwan or in Switzerland or from coldness. So I think I think it's quite a global a way of looking to things. So what is different, of course, it's the type of climate. You are not working in the same way for a dry, hot climate or humid, hot climate or cold. So there is some different approach for that, and then. Of course, in Peru, there is something that is interesting, that especially in Lima, that it's never too cold, never too hot. So in reality, we are managing the space more because of the sun, but often, there is a cloud that are managing that for us. But it's also for the rain or for, so it's true that each area have a specificity, but we have also to think that this climatic specificity is changing through global warming. So it means that it would be not the same, it's always changing. And so this is why we don't have to have a fixed identity. We have a transformed identity, a cultural identity. When I'm teaching, but it's the same when I'm doing a project. Because I place the climate as the main issue of building. I say that why we need to build a building. It's too hot outside or too cold outside or too rainy outside, or So architecture is really fundamentally the art of creating microclimate. We are creating a microclimate where you feel good, because you can die maybe if you go outside because it's too hot and too much sun. But for making a project, I think scientific knowledge is really important. And it's why we know that how to lose heat or get heat with the exterior. It's through convection, through conduction, through evaporation, or through radiation. And then inside conduction, you have some thermal inertia, or inside radiation, you have the albedo, you have the emissivity. In conduction, you have also the effusivity. So when I teach, I ask to the student to know about, for example, thermal effusivity, and then to make a project with thermal effusivity. So it's like to start from this knowledge, scientific knowledge, and to rediscover and redefining some form and some project according to this knowledge. And this is for me really important, because I think imagination has to come from your own your research. It cannot come like that. We are not genius with some genius idea, and very often when you see a genius idea, it's completely engraved in a period of time. It's so it's why I'm always making project based on some scientific knowledge, and it's grow from that. And so in my project, for example, today we are working on the master plan for the city of Aix-en-Provence in France, and so we say. In this city, it will be becoming more and more hot, and the government of Aix-en-Provence is afraid that the new district will be too hot in the future, and so they ask us to redefine the district. It is the urban planning, and we did that by analyzing radiation, conduction, convection, evaporation, and then from that to redefine the form of the city, to letting the wind going through, or to changing the type of material of the facade in order that it's not too hot, it not accumulate too much heat during the day and release it during the night, but to cool very quickly when the night is coming, And so it's mean that the type of material, the type of color, the size of the street, the type of the block, of everything is challenged by that, and so you can redefine a master plan through this type of convection, conduction, radiation, and evaporation. We start by making some more interior definition, because as I was talking about, architecture is the definition of microclimate. So it's true that we were at the beginning more analyzing what is happening inside the walls. But when we won the competition in Taiwan for 70 hectares, so it was a quite big project, in reality, we apply that at the big scale, and so we create the form of the park linked to the wind, or linked to the radiation, or to the evaporation. So we and it was completely it was working quite well, because in reality it was the essence of the city, and then. For the building, it's the same also for the interior, but also for the exterior. You have to think about the albedo, the color of the building, if it is reflecting or absorbing the heat from the sun, and the type of window, how you manage the light. So I think this we work at this different scale, and more recently, since the Taiwan project, we made some urban project. For example, we were working on the development of the city of Munich, München, and in Germany. It was a very big project of 700 hectares, very large development, and for that, for example, we have proposed to have like winter plaza, summer plaza, to analyze where the wind will go, the rain. So it's a scale that I appreciate, and of course I also appreciate the building scale. So the hardest way, I think but it's also the most exciting way in the past, is when you are developing ideas that are not completely the idea of the moment. You are anticipating a little what will happen, and so of course you have possibility to develop them, but sometimes it's a little complicated, because if you are just doing what everybody like at the moment, it's more easy, but after 5 years it's becoming more complicated for you maybe. I really want to I have to say that I really want to make project to build more and to make urban design, and we are working on different projects now for housing and office and kindergarten and so this is something that I like, and in the same time I'm always trying to be in the contemporary conversation and to try to define what I think is important today in the field of architecture.